I'm going to speak on laparoscopy in pregnancy regarding the guidelines. So, pregnancy, as you all know, is a very joyful and very cherished moment in the family when everybody joins hands to welcome the newborn. But it is not without emergencies. One in 500 women require some or the other non-obstetrical surgical emergencies in pregnancy. It could be an obstetric complication, it could be a gynec problem, or it could be like a surgical appendicitis, cholecystitis, or any other solid organ problems. So, in my career, I have seen this big U-turn regarding laparoscopy. As a medical student, I was always telling that laparoscopy is an absolute contraindication in pregnancy. In pregnancy, you cannot do a laparoscopy. But now I am advocating laparoscopy in pregnancy because it was Nezat and the colleagues who first in 1991 they performed the first laparoscopic ovarian cystectomy, and they showed it that it is very safe. Even before that, a lot of surgeons had performed cholecystectomy and also stated the same way. So let us check what is exactly it is. There is always fear, reluctance whenever we say any surgical options in pregnancy. That is because, and especially the laparoscopy, is because of three reasons. People feel, or the doctors, obstetricians, or the family always feels that when you put CO2 in the abdomen and distend the abdomen, there is compression of the inferior vena cava because of the pneumoperitoneum. Also, the gravid uterus is compressing the inferior vena cava. There is less return of blood, and this leads to maternal hypotension and in turn leads to fetal distress. So, this was one worry. Second is everybody always feels that because of the distension pressure, the blood supply is hampered and less blood will go to the fetus and there will be hypoxia. Third important thing is the CO2 gets absorbed from the peritoneum into the maternal circulation, and the maternal arterial CO2 rises. This in turn leads to the fetal acidosis. So these are the main concerns. And also there are other concerns like when exactly to do perform the laparoscopy in pregnancy, or how to avoid injuries to the gravid uterus, inserting the primary trocar as well as the accessory trocars, and how to monitor the mother as well as the fetal well-being. So these are all the controversies that exist. So let us do a check list for this. Very reassuring study by Massimo Candiani. And here what they did is they studied the fetal indices of the blood indices in the pregnancies during the insufflation, intraoperatively, and immediate postoperatively. And they found that the blood flow is not at all affected. And so it is very reassuring that you can go ahead without invasive monitoring of the mother for the blood indices in during the surgery. So this is the physiological effect is safe in cases of laparoscopic surgeries in pregnancy. Next, another very important and very fascinating study by Bhavani Shankar, where they actually did the invasive testing of the mother to check the arterial CO2 levels. It was pre-insufflation, during the insufflation, during the operation, and post-operative. And when they maintained the minute volume at 32, that is the EtCO2 at 32, they found that the arterial CO2 and the EtCO2 are same. So it was so nice to note that just like our pulse oximeter, if you just do a capnography monitoring of the mother, that is enough to monitor a patient, even a pregnant patient, even if you are doing a laparoscopic surgery. So the monitoring has become very, very easy and reassuring. And that's the reason the acceptance of laparoscopy went ahead. So now suppose a patient has an emergency. So the guidelines, the first 7 guidelines are related to the diagnostic methods, and we have options. So the best method in pregnancy is to do an ultrasound. If at all it is not possible to reach the diagnosis, then MRI is preferred over CT scan, and X-rays are to be avoided. So in very rare conditions, suppose if you are not very sure about the torsion or those conditions, laparoscopy also can be used as a diagnostic as well as a therapeutic method. So these are the guidelines. Ultrasound is the best to perform a lot of times, and most of the pathologies we see in practice are the first trimester ultrasound when you see corpus luteum functional cysts. And so it gives us a good guideline to how to go ahead in our practice. Second is, suppose now we decide that, okay, this particular patient needs surgery. So what will you choose? Whether you will do a laparoscopy or laparotomy. So definitely laparoscopy, unlike like what you have in a non-pregnant stage, the same advantages are there, as well as there are additional advantages. Like there is decreased pain, shorter hospital stay, early return to ambulation, early return to activity, and less narcotics needed. So there is less fetal depression. And because in laparoscopy you don't manipulate the uterus, so there is less chances of miscarriages or preterm labor. And also because it's a microsurgery, less bowel handling, less ileus, and all these advantages are there in pregnancy. So we'll just see how clearly this is a case of a heterotropic pregnancy. And here you can appreciate there's a right tubal pregnancy, and the we can just go ahead cleaning the abdomen. And here you will appreciate we uh, catch the medial part of the tube, very good illumination, magnification. You can go very close to the tissues and appreciate very nicely. So minimal handling is there. And so you can actually take care of this such heterotropic pregnancies or any other obstetric complications, or for that matter, appendicectomy or any other pathologies which need emergency surgeries. So here you can see we could easily, without even uterine manipulation or any delay in the surgery or consuming too much of time, we perform a good clean removal of an ectopic, the salpingostomy. You don't even have to remove the tube if you are very, very meticulous, and if it's a small heterotropic pregnancy. Of course, large pregnancies more than 4 centimeters will go ahead with the salpingectomy. So role of a lot of studies have proved a very good role of laparoscopy, that is shorter hospital stay, early ambulation, and reduced post-operative pain. So is it better than the laparotomy? Yes, there's a good paper by Ku, who has shown 10 years of experience with 88 patients, and they showed that yes, laparoscopy is very, very safe in pregnancy. Another paper by Osner with more patients, 192, they also showed that yes, operative laparoscopy is safer in pregnancy. The Soriano showed less miscarriages or preterm deliveries with laparoscopy. And Co did another extended study with more patients, 262 patients, and there they found that there is shorter hospital stay, shorter operative time. So it is not only safe, but it is advantageous. So if this has been proved that laparoscopy is here to stay and is doing wonders in those unfortunate patients who need to do surgery in pregnancy. Next, we come to the guideline, is the safety factors. So when exactly do you do surgery? Traditionally, we were told that it is better to delay the surgery till second trimester, because of the fear that in first trimester there would be miscarriages, or in the third trimester there would be preterm labor. But the surgical literature has shown that laparoscopy is safe in pregnancy in all trimesters. So it can be done as late as the third trimester also. Now, where exactly, suppose now we take the patient to the operation theater, what are the precautions or the guidelines we have to take into consideration? The gravid uterus is going to compress the inferior vena cava. And so already there is distension, there is compression, less return of the blood from the legs, and there could be hypotension. So it is advocated that the patient, pregnant patient, should always be in the left lateral decubitus position, so as to release the compression on the inferior vena cava and avoid all these complications. Next is, suppose now we start the surgery, where exactly to put the primary trocar, because there's a gross fear factor that the trocars are sharp and they can injure the uterus, and there could be torrential bleeding, because as it is, it's a hypervascular, lot of blood supply and flow to the uterus. So one has to take into consideration the age of gestation, height of the uterus, and also it has been shown that open Hassan's technique is the safest. Even if you are using Veress needle, use of good towel clips, elevating the abdomen very firmly, and also going slightly higher up. So depending upon, you can use ultrasound to judge, or the palpation method to judge the fundal height and accordingly plan. Palmer's point is the safest in most of the trimesters of pregnancy to enter into the Palmer's point, that is mid clavicular subcostal, 2 fingers below the subcostal level. So it is safer to enter, and optical trocars are another option, because there you go under vision, or you can go with the Ternemian's endotip, which is still the safest option to perform the primary trocar and the accessory trocars. Next, we come to the what pressure of CO2 insufflation can be put, because always there's a concern that over distension would compress, or there would be more peritoneal absorption. So the best method is to keep the pressure between 10 to 12. Personally, I keep it below 12, and I compensate this by using a 30 degrees telescope. So even if it's a less distended state of abdomen, I am able to see in various angles and difficulties with the 30 degrees. So 0 degree is also possible, depending on how much head low, because what happens is with low pressure, the uterus is big, the diaphragm gets pushed, the lung capacity is less, and then these factors are exaggerated by giving a Trendelenburg head low position. So all this can be difficult for the patient to bear. So you have to keep the pressures low, adequate or less Trendelenburg position. And in all these conditions, we can very well perform the laparoscopic surgery. Next is monitoring. As I had already mentioned about the paper by Bhavani Shankar, where it has been shown that arterial CO2 and the ET CO2 are the same in cases of laparoscopy for pregnancy. So simple ET CO2 monitoring is recommended, and that is a very reliable method, but it is a must. One should always use these modalities to monitor our patients in surgery. Next is the DVT. Pregnancy itself is a hypercoagulable stage, and you can always see that there is venous stasis. There is, because of progesterone, the blood flow is slow, and there is a lot of blood supply to the pelvis. So all these conditions are predisposing to thromboembolism, deep vein thrombosis. So intraoperative and postoperative pneumatic compressions are a must, and one should always utilize them in their surgeries. Secondly, in cases of very extensive or very prolonged surgeries, the unfractionated heparin is the best agent to prevent the deep vein thrombosis in pregnancy. So now the guidelines 15, 16, 17, and 18 are mainly the surgical guidelines, but we always have to know about them, because we are dealing with the pregnancy patients, and there is very high chances that these patients can have surgical complications. It is very, it has been noted that because of the nausea, vomiting, pain, which are normal things in pregnancy, a lot of surgical complications are confusing and we miss them. A delay in diagnosis is actually the biggest reason for the sepsis or complications to the mother and the fetus in pregnancy. So we all have to know about them. One or the other time, if you are working in a multi-specialty, multidisciplinary hospital, you would be called for attending a patient, pregnant patient undergoing some other surgery, maybe some hip surgery or any other surgery where there could be an emergency, and maybe they have to stop the surgery, and you will have to take over and do a cesarean section. And this has been noted in literature that this happens very often. So we all have to know the guidelines in cases of the operation surgeries in pregnancy. So appendicitis, cholecystitis, or any other adrenal problems, renal problems, these surgeries can be performed very well in cases of pregnancy, and that too laparoscopy. Now we come to what concerns us most, that is the adnexal masses, and the incidence is 2%. Mostly the adnexal masses are diagnosed as a part of the first trimester scanning, the confirmation of pregnancy or dating of the gestational age, and there you find corpus luteum cysts. By and large, most of them are simple cysts, they are benign, and 80 to 94% of them will resolve spontaneously. So we just have to wait. So guidelines are that if the cysts are simple and they are less than 6 centimeters and the patient is asymptomatic, don't do anything, just observe. But if the cyst persists in the second trimester, or if it increases, the guidelines are for 10 centimeters, or the patient starts becoming symptomatic, or if it is a solid or complex cyst, then it is better to intervene, because there is a chance that there could be less than 2 to 5% chances of a malignancy. So we have to keep a watch. So when to operate has to be a balance between the risk of surgery to the mother and fetus. And also we should always have to observe, we should have a reassuring finding from our radiologist friend that there is absence of malignancy and the cysts are smaller and there are no symptoms to the patient. So we can very well observe. But surgery is indicated, like I said, in larger cysts, symptomatic cysts, or if it is complex or solid. In those cases, we might have to perform the surgery. It is always better to monitor these patients, and elective surgery is preferred than an emergency, because emergency surgeries are always associated with complications, whereas the elective surgeries are very, very safe. So we have to be very, very careful in assessing these patients. So no firm guidelines between lesser than 6, observe, more than 10, operate, in between is indeterminate. So next is, suppose we observe and this patient goes into torsion. So laparoscopy again is a very good option to diagnose as well as treat the patients with acute pain or torsion with pregnancy. So laparoscopy, you can, if it is a very early diagnosis of torsion, the fimbrias and the fallopian tubes are looking pink, as well as the ovary is healthy. So in those cases, simple detorsion is possible. Even if it is looking very dark colored, you can always do a release the torsion, wait for some time, because the color comes back. We are very, very, a lot of times we make a visual decision, oh, this is already gangrenous and let me remove it. Most of the time the blood flow comes back. But if, yes, if it's a long history and if it is totally gangrenous, in those cases we have to remove it to prevent the peritonitis or the complications to the fetus or to the mother. Next is, how do we monitor? If the pregnancy is beyond the age of viability and you can hear the fetal heart sounds, then yes, we have to pre-operatively hear the heart sounds, and that is very reassuring to the mother as well, before surgery, that the fetal heart sounds are heard. And post-operatively, if you can make that attempt to make her hear the fetal heart sounds, that's very assuring, and the patient recovers very, very well. So just pre-operative and post-operative fetal heart monitoring is what is exactly needed, and no much of invasive testing is needed to monitor the fetus. We have a concern that with distension, with manipulation, the uterus will go into contractions. And so is there any role of prophylactic tocolysis? Well, there is no role of prophylactic tocolysis. Only in cases if you find that, yes, the patient is going into preterm labor in the third trimester, then yes, we can use the IV tocolysis for smaller part of the period time, and giving dexamethasone and taking care of the delivery. So finally, to conclude, I feel that experience counts. All the literature that is available comes from very high end, very high volume centers. So experience is very, very important. Multidisciplinary approach is important. The hospital should be very well equipped to take care of the maternal and fetal problems, and a well informed patient is very important. So in summary, minimally invasive surgery, when surgery is indicated, appears to be safe in pregnancy for any all the pathologies, maybe obstetric, adnexal masses, or gynecological problems. So thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. If there are any questions, I would be very happy to answer. And routinely we are doing, I had a lot of videos, but I think due to paucity of time will not play because they're not edited yet. But very routinely we use these surgeries for ectopics, or for lap cervical cerclage, or adnexal masses. So thank you very much for this opportunity.